So you're thinking about buying an iPad, but you don't know where to start. Right now, Apple has 4 different models and 3 different screen sizes of iPads. So yeah, it's confusing already. Let me make the decision much easier for you, still get you what you need, and save you some cash along the way. If you're new here, and I'm new here, this is my first video on this channel. Quick introduction, my name is Dan Fox. I've worked professionally in the technical support world for over 30 years, and during that time, I've used almost every imaginable consumer technology and gadget that you've heard of regularly. So, let's see if I can save you the hassle and make this an easy purchase for you. In this video, I'm going to show you how to use a few simple factors to figure out which iPad is the right one for you. I'll also make a nice little one-page cheat sheet that you can use later for reference. So Apple makes their own comparison tool on their website. I'll put a link in this video's description for that, but just to warn you, that tool does get a little bit technical. Now I'm recording this video in October of 2025, and this video will age, of course, but these factors are generally always similar with the iPad line, so until Apple makes some drastic changes, this video should be relevant. So if you're not really familiar with iPads, they are certainly a great option for entertainment purposes, but they can also be a full-blown computer replacement depending on what your needs are, which model you get, and which accessories you get with it. iPads run on software that's really similar to the software that runs on your iPhone, so if you have an iPhone, you already know how to use an iPad. Now, the easiest thing to do to filter down which iPad is right for you is to start by looking at the screen sizes. And again, there's 3 different screen sizes of iPads. Now, if you have an Apple store or a Best Buy or some other electronics store near you, it really is worth taking a trip to the store, because once you have them in your hand, you may decide that you want a different model or a different size than what you originally thought. But if you don't have that option, I think this video is going to be your next best bet. Now, if you intend to use the iPad with a wireless keyboard or a wireless mouse, all the makes and models can connect to various types of wireless mice and keyboard, so that shouldn't be a factor for you. The same applies to an Apple Pencil, which is Apple's version of a stylus, if you're going to use this to sketch or take handwritten notes or do digital painting or anything like that. Now, these accessories are a little bit different depending on which make and model you pick, but I've used them all, and honestly, in all practicality, a real-world use, there's really not that much difference between them. Hey, if you're finding value in this video, make sure you hit subscribe below and click the little bell so you get notifications anytime I post new content. It helps my channel and I greatly appreciate it. All right, we're going to start by looking at the 3 different sizes of iPads, and once you decide which size you want, the decision on which model to get is much easier. Now, all this is somewhat subjective to a degree, but I have owned almost every iPad size and model since version 2 back in 2011, so I can give honest feedback on what it's like to use these in day-to-day use. Let's get into some of those details. Let's start with the small one. Now, the smallest iPad is about the size of a standard piece of notebook paper folded in half. It is great for entertainment, for things like reading, because it's so small. It's great as sort of like an e-reader, similar to what you would do with a Kindle. It's great for YouTube, Netflix, streaming your shows, doing your social media or mobile games, the types of games you would do on your iPhone anyway. And it's also really nice as a notebook if you pair it with an Apple Pencil. It's about the size of the old school composition notebooks if you use it that way. All right, let's talk about the standard size iPad. It's about the size of a traditional magazine. In fact, when the iPad first came out, the dimensions were very similar to the current regular size iPad, and it was often referenced that this is great to read magazines on, back when that was a much more common thing. But to give you a size idea, that's about how big it is. Now, this is the size iPad I overwhelmingly recommend for most people, especially if you already have a computer. It's very portable. It's still very easy to use as sort of like a mini laptop if you pair it with a mouse and keyboard. It's also really good for a lot of the things I mentioned for the smaller one, like streaming your shows or entertainment purposes, doing social media, mobile games, and things like that. But where it differs significantly is doing things like productivity, especially if you pair it with a keyboard and mouse. It is very much a computer-like experience at that point. Just smaller than what you would get in a normal laptop. And personally, I love the portability of that because I also have a laptop if I need a full-blown computer. All right, let's talk about the largest iPad. It's about the same size as a piece of notebook paper, but this time not folded, just a standard piece of notebook paper. And as you can imagine, It's really nice for some of the things I mentioned on the other models, like entertainment, streaming your shows, doing social media, mobile gaming, and such. It's also great for productivity work. It is a computer-like experience, especially if you pair it with a mouse and keyboard or a keyboard case and mouse or touchpad. When you do that, it's almost exactly the same size as a 13-inch MacBook or a 13-inch laptop. So it is very much a laptop experience with a model this big when paired with a keyboard and mouse. But where this one also stands out is if you're an artist and you like to do digital painting or sketching or reading sheet music, it is excellent for that as well. And as I mentioned before, keep in mind that regardless of which size or model you select, all of them can pair with a wireless mouse, keyboard, Apple Pencil, or a wireless trackpad. Sometimes this is built into the case, but you can also get them that are not built into the case. Lots of options there. Okay, so if you use the sizing cheat sheet here, and you decide based on all the features and differences that you think the smallest iPad is for you, it's a really easy choice because there's only one iPad model that is the smaller one, and that is the iPad mini. Now, I've used various versions of the iPad mini, and it is really nice. It's most commonly used in my experience with those that read a lot of books on their iPad, but it doesn't have any missing features as far as the main things that you would use an iPad for. So you're not losing anything there. You just get a much smaller screen. All right, let's move over to the standard size iPad. Now the standard size iPad, or the 11-inch iPad as it's called, that comes in 3 different models. The base model, which is called the iPad Air, which is like the middle, and the iPad Pro, which is like the best one. Those are the 3 models it comes in. And just as a measure of reference, if you're going to be leaning towards the larger one only comes in the iPad Air and the iPad Pro. It does not come in the base iPad model. But again, the overwhelming majority of people that I have helped with this have chosen the base model. It's an awesome device for all the tasks that most people want to use a tablet for, but it's also not a great choice if you're going to do some heavy lifting like video editing or 3D rendering or graphically intense gaming. Now we're looking at the different models. Again, that base model iPad is the absolute best value. I just wanted to point out one of the things that makes it a little different that's noticeable is that you have to use a fingerprint login on the power button, similar to the way the old iPhones worked, but on the side instead of on the screen. Not a huge deal, but it's one of the things that most people do notice the difference on. Now, if you want something a little bit nicer, or maybe you're leaning towards that larger size screen, you're going to have to consider then the iPad Air or the iPad Pro because, again, the base model iPad doesn't have the larger screen size. Now, if you look at the iPad Air in the smaller or the larger size, it has a slightly better screen than the one on the base iPad. But it's also faster and more powerful than the basic iPad. So if you're going to use it for things like video editing or a lot of multitasking, the iPad Air is going to be a better choice for you, even if you stay with that standard size screen. And just to point out, it also has the fingerprint login like the base model iPad. And if you want something even nicer than that, or you just want the absolute best iPad money can buy, that's when you want to go with the iPad Pro. It comes in the same screen sizes as the iPad Air. That's the standard and large size. Now the screen on the iPad Pro is even nicer than the one on the iPad Air. And make no mistake, the screen on all of these iPads is really nice. But if you really just want the absolute best screen money can buy on an iPad, you want to get the iPad Pro. It also has better sound. If you intend to use your iPad as sort of a mini radio, you're going to want to get the iPad Pro. And the iPad Pro is also faster and more capable than the iPad Air. It's great for video editing, just like the iPad Air, but it also can connect to wired devices like external hard drives with a much faster connection speed. So if you're copying a lot of files back and forth between your iPad and an external hard drive, you're going to want the iPad Pro. The iPad Pro is also the best choice if you intend to do things like 8K video editing, or if you intend to do large 3D work like LiDAR scanning or building 3D models on your iPad. Now, these are very specific and niche workflows, and chances are, if you're going to be doing that on an iPad, then you already know you need the iPad Pro. And one more time, as a reminder, if you intend to use your iPad with a mouse, keyboard, Apple Pencil, or trackpad, you can do that with any of these iPads, any of the sizes, any of the models. So don't let that be a deciding factor for you. So that's it. I hope this helped you decide which iPad size you need and which iPad model you need. Now, once you've decided on which size and which model iPad you're going to get, you need to decide how much storage you're going to get. And again, for the overwhelming majority of people, 256 gig storage is perfect, especially if you use iCloud and especially if you have optimized storage selected within your settings. The other question is, do you need to add cellular to your iPad? Now, you have to decide this when you buy it because you can't add this later. This is a cellular radio, and Apple makes models without it and with it. So if you think you may need cellular, be it now or sometime in the future, you definitely want to buy the cellular model. But for most people, if you're going to have Wi-Fi or if you even want to use your phone as a Wi-Fi hotspot, then just buy the Wi-Fi version of the iPad. It is nice having the cellular version, especially if you have a different carrier on your iPad than you have on your iPhone. So if you're traveling, you know you're always going to have an internet connection, but you're going to have to pay for that monthly cellular plan. For most people, the base model iPad with 256 gig of storage, Wi-Fi only, no cellular plan is the absolute best choice. One last thing here. Do you even need the latest model? Apple usually sells what they refer to as certified refurbished models. These are often older models, but sometimes they even have them in the latest models, and they're usually at least $100 off. They have the exact same warranty as a brand new one, so there's really no downside to buying the certified refurbished model. That's what I buy every time I can. It comes sealed in the box, there's no sign of wear, and it looks absolutely brand new. If you've made it this far through the video, thank you so much for taking the time to watch all the way through. I hope I've helped you decide which iPad size or model you're going to get. Don't forget that link I'm going to put in the description to Apple's comparison tool if you really want to dig deep. And also, if this video helped you, let me know. Let me know what you decided on and what you think of the model you decided on. Also, leave a comment in the video. I appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.